All right, what's up, everybody? Thank you so much for coming out. Tonight is social media night, so just a little housekeeping before we get started. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, good. My name is Quentin Ford. I'm the co-founder of KNW Agency. We help individuals and startups avoid costly business mistakes by bringing you informative events like these. We also empower entrepreneurs and startups here in the Silicon Beach area. So I did want to quickly thank Control Collective for allowing us to have this awesome event here. This is a co-working space, so if any of you guys are looking to rent office space, check out Control Collective. I personally work here. It's awesome. You can talk to Paulina at the front. And so I would highly encourage you guys to do that if you're checking out any sort of office space at all. So without any further ado, I would love to have the panelists introduce themselves, and I think we'll go ahead and start with Jai. Jai, if you'll just grab the microphone and just state your name and introduce yourself.
My name is Jai Muarin. I'm the CEO and co-founder of All Day Media. All Day Media is a next-generation multi-platform media company. We like to think of ourselves as like storytellers for the next generation, and we focus on growing communities and driving engaged audiences.
My name is Lily Brigger. I look after all things related to talent at Tastemade, and that is talent not as in HR, but as in the influencers we work with. Tastemade is a global media company. We're really bridging the gap between digital and television. We have three components to our business model, which is studio, community, and platform. We're really passionate about telling stories through video, and we love food, travel, and all things in the name of good taste.
Hi, I'm Mason. I am a social media person. I run the social media department for Open Road Films, which is a mini-major studio in Santa Monica. I do social media.
Hi, my name is Victoria Mendoza. I am the director of digital media and audience development at Comedy.com. We are a new-ish production house and influencer network with about 60 talent right now, and currently have a reach of, I think last month, according to Tubular Labs, we hit about 4 billion views. So it was pretty exciting.
Woo! All right, so a hand for the panelists here. Cool. So is anyone in the crowd a social media manager? Okay. Well, any influencers in the crowd? Awesome. Cool. So I think this is going to be a great panel. The first question that I wanted to bring to all of you is, it's kind of a general one, but I wanted to know what social media networks are the most effective for your particular companies and why. So is there a particular focus that you guys have? YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, etc. So whoever wants to take the mic, go for it.
Since we do produce a lot of short-form comedy sketches, we actually focus not as much on YouTube yet, but we're actually focusing on Facebook and Instagram right now as a platform to reach our audience, which is very young, very millennial, and producing some interesting content there for them.
For entertainment-wise, YouTube was a great one for us for commercials as well as spots and behind-the-scenes content. And then we usually see those through Facebook as well as Instagram because we put paid behind it. So those were probably the biggest ones that we used.
So we use all of them. Tastemade is actually quite interesting. It started off as a YouTube MCN, and in less than a year got up to about 17 million followers, and now we're in the 20 million followers on Facebook. So that is our biggest platform where we're turning over the most views, which is about 1.2 billion monthly. Instagram, we were at about, I think, 60,000 or 70,000, less than a year and a half ago, and now we're at 2 million. And how that really happened is that we were the early adopters of videos. First and foremost, we have teams dedicated to each one of those platforms, and we're obsessed about the analytics. And we program per platform instead of repurposing content across all of them, which is, I think, been key of our success.
We focus a lot on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We actually started with Twitter at the beginning, and then we quickly realized that Facebook was sort of the next big platform. We currently have about close to 30 million followers across Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, but we find Facebook to be the main platform that we utilize, although Instagram seems to be a lot easier to grow audiences in, but yeah, we do use all three of them and moving into Snapchat in the near future.
So I know there's a big shift moving to Facebook for video. Can you guys maybe explain a little bit how that's been beneficial for you guys, and maybe talk about the virality within Facebook? Posting a video there, maybe will get shared more than posting something on YouTube.
Sure. So we have partnered with Facebook to do 100 live shows a month. So live has been a massive game changer, and just cracking the code and what goes into that. But the virality behind it, I think one of the things that we learned is that not only with the final dish in terms of food, but also the process. So any sort of video, whether it be a craft video or a food video or anything, the process needs to be appealing. And within that first 3 seconds, you gotta hook them. If you don't hook them in the first 3 seconds, you lose your audience completely on a platform like Instagram and Facebook, where it's short form content.
Yeah. Well, coming from YouTube, I think Facebook obviously is making a big play and big shift into video. So their algorithm is also favoring the video, and it's allowing you to reach more of your audience, a bigger percentage of your audience. And yeah, obviously the first few minutes of anything you upload are really important. And if it performs well, then the algorithm favors it and it allows it to reach more audiences, which in turn gets more shares and it continues to move. Now, the reason why for us Facebook's also big, really important, is because we are able to boost certain posts that we have, so through Facebook ads. So that's also another one of our strategies to make sure that we reach, that we increase our reach. And if you create the right content and you're targeting the right audience, then that's gonna allow you to continue to reach more of that target audience that you're trying to reach.
Yeah, we found that since our network has such a huge reach in its own, that one thing we do to kind of give the algorithm a little kick is to work with the influencers that we're partnered with to help share our current videos. So whenever we're publishing something, we're like, get on there and share it to your 7 million fans, to your 1 million fans, to your 10 million fans right now. And the sooner they share it, it just starts an avalanche. And it kind of helps show Facebook that the piece is engaging, it's getting the comments, it's getting the shares, and then it continues to kind of build it on its own organically without us having boosted it at all, which is really kind of neat.
Yeah, to that point too, I like, for any of our movies that we did, we had all the talent share specific talent pieces of video, so that, I mean, like, obviously, if you see one trailer, you'll see it everywhere else. If you have specific content for each talent, it really got a lot more play on them, and a lot more like reach, because obviously if the fans of the celebrity themselves, obviously a more centerpiece on them would get in more inviting space, especially on Facebook, because fans are more dedicated into like the sharing is more native on Facebook than YouTube.
Okay, so this came up the other day, the Chewbacca mom video on Facebook, and there's like a little conspiracy out there because it just conveniently happened to drop right when Facebook Live was announced, essentially. So, and it went like crazy viral. Is there any insights on what happened there with Chewbacca mom? No.
Conspiracy. That was the conspiracy.
That she was
In on
a
it?
character that was like premeditated and like essentially
Like a Jimmy
told
Kimmel
to do
kind of
that.
thing?
Yeah, exactly.
I can't speak to that moment exactly, but, and I don't know what happened there, but what I can tell you is that a lot of moments that have gone viral have been pre-staged. So, if anybody was tuning in, to the Fashion Week Valentino show when Zoolander, Derek Zoolander and Hans kind of appeared. So, you know, there was a lot of planning going into that. I think the people that were sitting in the front row were carefully selected, talent that were then asked, you know, to post on social media. And there is a kind of thing where especially when there's a brand behind it, there's some planning where it'll go viral and then a brand will claim it like 2 or 3 days later. And especially in the entertainment industry where you want to look as organic as possible, a lot of these things are premeditated. But the first and foremost, you need an idea. So just like the idea that you mentioned, just like Zoolander popping out of nowhere after 10 years, it's amazing and everybody wants to talk about it. So regardless of whether you have the best front row, if you don't have that initial idea where people are going to be like, oh my God, I want to share this, it's not going to go viral. So there may be something behind it, but the idea, I mean, that was something that people asked about.
Yeah,
right? So-
yeah. Absolutely awesome.
Got it. I was going to say, yes, if you know a lot of influencers, or if your company has a lot of these influencers that can help you share the content that you're publishing, then there's definitely strategies that you can utilize to make sure that your video goes viral, right? Or that it reaches a lot of people. But most of us, or most smaller companies that don't really have access to that, or don't have the influencers to actually do that, then it really comes down to the content you're creating and the relationships you're building with your audiences. That is the most important thing. If you want to build an audience and you don't have a lot of influencers, already a lot of following, then you need to start from the beginning. You need to understand what your brand's voice is, what type of content you're going to be publishing, and then you got to really start building relationships with your audiences. I mean, it comes down to that. That's the basics. You got to answer comments. You got to post constantly. You got to make sure that you're listening to them. You're creating the right content for them, right? So at the end of the day, yeah, we can sit here and tell you how something can go viral, or how you can premeditate the virality of a post. But at the end of the day, I think the most important thing is, what is it really that helps you build an audience online, right? And at the end of the day, that's content and that's relationship building.
Awesome.
Whether it was staged or not, I mean, like, okay, like I worked on a couple campaigns where we got like influencers and celebrities to kind of like drop something or leak something, or a parrot picked up something, or like a seagull picked up a camera or something. But I saw the video. I watched it a couple times. Hilarious. But I think moreover, I mean, like Facebook was trying to push live for a while. I mean, like for a minute, it was negating the algorithm whenever your friends like went live. It would always ping you on like a push notification that they go on. I think more than it was like stunted, that it really hit an emotional like note for a lot of people. Like it was genuine laughter and like enjoyment. And I think a lot of the marketing that at least I try to do is like, when you look at a demographic, you try to hit those emotional notes, because that's what connects you to the audience. That's what makes people share stuff. If you think about it yourselves, if something really identifies with you, then you'll share it because it's part of you. A lot of people nowadays are really protective about what they share, because if you start sharing things that are like unfounded facts or something like that, people start getting shamed publicly online. So I think it was like she shared it online. It connected with a lot of people. They felt like, this could be me. This is in part, this is me, and they shared it. Whether Facebook pushed it a little more out there to really promote their live feature to like back it, that might be a little like sketchy.
I totally agree. I firmly believe that one of the biggest aspects of something going viral, or to get something to be shareable, is for the vast majority of the people you're trying to reach, for them to identify with the content somehow. Whether it's informational, like Tastemade, and they're like, I'm a chef, I'm a cook, this is something that I care about. and this is informational helpful, or if it hits an emotional response, whether it's outrage, whether it's joy, whether it's sadness, those things all come back to identity and who you are online, your online persona. And whenever you share a piece of content, I always joke, retweets don't actually mean endorsement, but it kind of is. When you're sharing content, it's really, this is something that's important to me, this is something that I care about, I like to make my friends laugh, I'm gonna share this because of that. So being able to identify who your target audience is and what they're going to identify with is really going to help you create content that's shareable.
Cool. So the next question I have for you guys is, are there some social media networks out there that you're trying to improve upon, like something, or learn a little bit better, like Snapchat, or moving into Twitch, given that you guys are in video? Is there anywhere where you guys are really trying to improve and grow a new audience besides sort of the big three that we mentioned, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube?
Or Vine.
What is that?
Forcefully. So definitely every audience that we work on is different, because movies, the campaign plans are so short. So it's like you open the movie, that audience will be widely different from the movie before it or after it. What we always look, other than the big three that we try to focus on, is what social media network identifies with the demographic that's lining up with the campaigns, and then how prominent that is to that demographic. We did a movie called Dope that we were really heavy into Snapchat because it aligned the demographics in that age range. And Vine, is Vine, aligned with the demographics. But we also did a movie called Spotlight that we didn't touch those at all. So it really, you focus on which align better. I mean, we could have done a Snapchat for Spotlight, which was a more older demographic, but it wouldn't hit who we're trying to hit.
So I can definitely speak to what we're looking at, but I would just preface this by saying that whatever your business model is and whatever you're thinking about for your brand or your media company or your personal brand, you obviously don't have you may have a staff of people working for you, but it's more like, what are your business objectives? Who do you want to reach, like everybody here is saying? And then your social media channels become that distribution outlet. So whatever you're producing and whatever you're creating. So for us, it's video. So obviously, wherever we live, and we were on Instagram, we didn't have a huge following because we were sharing videos when everybody else was sharing still images. But our founders just sat there and they're like, it's gonna change, like Zuck is gonna change it, like it's gonna become a video platform, and lo and behold, it did. I think now, we're looking at, it's not like there's a new one on the horizon, but there's definitely new content formats out there for us. So it's like, what is the best way to tell a story on Snapchat Discover? How can we leverage what we're doing on Snapchat Live Stories and turn that into a Discover story? Where does virtual reality come into the mix? Is that, where is that? We've shared that content out on Facebook today, but obviously if you're not, wearing the goggles, it doesn't work for everybody. But I think we're pretty set on the channels that we want to be on. We definitely experiment with new formats when they come out, but it is perfecting the content that goes out there, because my head of programming does this every day. He's like, Kate Mead's doing good things. We're putting out good stuff, but it's not great. Not every single thing is great. And he was like, not until every single piece of content we put out is great can we rest and say we are masters of the platform.
We talk about Snapchat. That's a sort of like a different animal for us right now. We're really focusing on just continue to grow our audiences within the platforms that we're in right now. Because we basically have different verticals of content. So we have about 30 accounts right now across 3 platforms, and we're growing new ones. So we just want to make sure that we go deeper into the wealth of each one of those genres. For example, we have history, right? We have the second largest history community across the platforms after History Channel. But that's just the big umbrella. Now we're looking inside of history and creating new ones. Like we have history of sound. So we're focusing really on those 3 platforms. As we grow, then we definitely want to start targeting other platforms. We want to make sure that we master the ones that we're in, and that we continue to grow those audiences there. And then we can. Once we have those audiences, it's easier to move them to different platforms. right? So yeah, so we're really sticking with the ones that we're working with.
We're just really focused on making sure we have the appropriate resources to have the right content for each platform. Like you said, you can't just push out the same thing on every channel and, all right, that's it, on for the day. So we're focusing a little bit more on episodic content, longer form through YouTube, which obviously takes up a lot more resources than a short form comedy sketches on Facebook. And then, of course, Snapchat is a completely different beast because we want it to be organic. We don't want to just upload a memory, be like that, and we're done. So, trying to think about how sketch comedy can work. It's still there, and just tons of bites is a lot more difficult. So, just right now, we're just thinking about building our resources to appropriately engage all those channels.
So, how do you guys manage your own personal social media accounts? Like, are you guys active yourself on social media, and do you use your own personal accounts to reach out to influencers rather than using your branding?
I'm very active on social media. I would consider myself a recovering influencer. I was a fashion blogger for 7-8 years. Went to Fashion Week, had partnerships with Elle Magazine, Style.com, and it's great, it's amazing. And I don't know, I think I just got a little bit tapped from it and decided to move to just using it in a personal capacity, which I find that as a lady working in social media, especially in influencer marketing, trying to do it on the side, it was just too much and hard to focus more on working and having personal. However, I am very active in social media, and I have reached out to influencers, mostly just on personal connection, you saw this movie and to this way or somehow whatnot. But yeah, I think it's really important to be active on the newer platforms to understand it before you bring it up and start talking about it in
I like social media. Like I'm on I have like 7 Instagram profiles when they started. I have a food vlog, I have an adventure vlog. It's like or an adventure account. It's like it's a lot of social. Do a lot of social. It's it's easy to get burnt out, especially when you're doing this 24/7. Well, social media people, you guys know, it's like social media doesn't stop at 6 or 7 or 10 or 20. Yeah. It's kind of like you just find the balance in between like where you are in your social and what you are doing presenting for the company. Because obviously, like you're not the brand that you're working for, you represent something else. But we'll continue to see that you're still, if you're representing yourself as a social media person for a company, you have to have some sort of social media responsibility on there. Not like the Red Cross thing, which you tweeted from the Red Cross account. And she was like, listen. Yeah, the social media manager for Red Cross accidentally logged into Red Cross as opposed to her personal profile. I tweeted something very brand, what is it? Just keep it at that. So, yeah, I mean, I love social media. Like, it's kind of what I do. That's a rare point, yeah. If you don't know social media, how do you represent it? So it's active. It's an active understand. Even like the way your demographics millennials, you have to understand it on a millennial level, not as a brand to a demographic.
As yourself, do you prefer one social media network over the other? Like, you're more active on Twitter or Instagram?
It really depends. Like Twitter, I've had it for a really long time, so I have a bigger following on that. Instagram, I had it private for a really long time. Several of the Instagram profiles are on public, so those are like, depending on what I'm posting, it goes to what channel.
Do you use those accounts for outreach? So, like, do you use Instagram to reach out to people or Twitter?
Sometimes, yeah, like on Twitter, because it's, like I said, there's a bigger following on that. If I'm reaching out to someone who has a big following on Twitter to work on a campaign for work, I'll usually reach out via that, because I mean, there is something to be said about like a validity of numbers on social media. As stupid as it is, like unless many people like purchase like followers and stuff like that, and it hurts like engagement and stuff. People see it and they're like the quick judgment up front. It's like, oh, that person tweeting me has 2 followers, okay, whatever. As opposed to that person tweeting me has 100,000 followers. Like, they don't look at the same. I mean, it's a quick bias that like I'm guilty of personally, like always looking over like someone's numbers, and then before really looking into it.
So I love social media. My mother is actually here from the East Coast tonight, and she can attest to the fact that I'm always on my phone and taking pictures of meals and stuff. We sit down to eat, but I definitely use my personal accounts for outreach. Not everybody is this way, and I think it depends on the company, but I love what I do. I am so passionate about it, and for me, my work and myself as a person is the same thing. And I have an irreverent tone of voice that comes across on my social channels. My 800 followers seem to like it, which is absolutely nothing. But you know, like I'm very honest about who I am in social media, but I'm careful about it too. Like if I do interesting experiences or I'm traveling, or a lot of the branded content work that I do, like you can go on my social media and you can see that I've done campaigns with Diageo and Rolls-Royce and leading hotels in the world. Like that's all out there. So if I'm contacting somebody and I'm hitting them up on Twitter, which I do, and I'm like, hey man, like I'd love to work with you. I love your style. Let's talk about working together to make me what's the best thing for you. People get back to me instantly. I think there's something about knowing that there's a human and a person on the other end versus like this automated thing that's like, we found you and we think that you are worth the value of $5,000 or something, like completely like a robot is standing behind it. And until they can do AI that makes it sound more like a human, that is the most effective form. Obviously, check with your company first. Like I always ask, you know, my bosses, my managers, am I okay to do this? Like put up disclaimers that are like, all views here are my own. But also, like when you're going for a job, people check out your social media, not just your LinkedIn. Like they're gonna see who you are on Twitter, who you are on Instagram. Like if they can look at your Facebook, like so what you're putting out there, if it's public, it counts. If you don't want anybody to see it, be private and still be careful because those videos might get leaked.
I like social media. I love social media. That's what I do. Personally, though, I use it more to capture moments more than anything. So when I travel, when I do take pictures of meals and like post that kind of stuff. But I'm not trying to necessarily build an audience for social media personally. I think of social media personally as a way of looking back and sort of seeing my story of everything I've done and my friends and all the adventures that I've done. So that's my personal. My Instagram is actually private. But when it comes to our business, originally when we first started the company, we were the ones running all our social media, and we love it. I mean, I love the accounts that we have, from History Picks to Earth Picks. I mean, they're really good brands and they're really engaged audiences. But now we have social media managers and strategy social managers, so they're the ones running it. But I'm constantly involved in terms of strategy and direction and making sure that things are, you know, we're handling the accounts correctly, we're communicating with the audiences accurately, and things like that, making sure that all the content is factual, that we do have set different content for each platform, and then that's huge. And you know, I think that's one of the biggest mistakes is that people grab one piece of content and they put it on all platforms at the same time, right? There's no authenticity behind it. So we are always making sure that we understand the voice of each one of our platforms and each one of our brands, and then we stay true to them. So that's kind of where I come in. I'm constantly looking at that and overseeing that piece of it. But yeah, overall, I love social, and I think that every business and everybody should have a social presence. If whether you're the brand or you have an actual business, then it's super important to have an audience that you're in touch with, or you're connected with, and that understands what you stand for.
Awesome. So it sounds like authenticity is really the key, but is there anything that you can do to kind of speed up your social media growth? For example, like I want to become a fashion blogger, got my blog and my Instagram and my Twitter. are there any programs that you can use or anything that you can do to like get people following you to actually view your content a little faster than just posting content?
I'll start that.
Cool.
Well, I mean, I think we need to kind of take a step back. If you're a blogger, one of the biggest mistakes that I see is that people use social media as a distribution and not as another platform. So it's not just about growing an audience so you can take them out of that platform and send it somewhere else. You need to understand that your Facebook page or your Instagram account, they're all platforms where you're publishing content. You just need to adjust that content to fit that platform, right? So you have to stop looking at it as a distribution channel. That's a huge mistake. You are building a community there. So it's a multi-platform. Just how you have a site or a blog, you have a Facebook, you have an Instagram, all those platforms count. And no matter where the audiences are following you, their audiences are in touch with you, that understand you, and they want to relate to you or consume your content. So don't underestimate the power of having the audience on Facebook, let's say. Even if your blog doesn't have a lot of followers yet, if you focus on building your trust and your relationship with that audience on Facebook, eventually they're going to also find you on your blog and on your URL or wherever it is you're at. But you have to make sure that you start looking at each platform and valuing each platform on its own. In terms of actual hacks, I mean, I really don't think there's actual hacks. There's some, or like ways to grow audiences, because at the end of the day, what matters is the engagement that you have on each one of these platforms. You can have 10 million followers, but if nobody's reacting to the content you're posting, then it has no value to me. So I think at the end of the day, the best practices, if anything, is to cross-promote with other people that are sharing similar content to yours, to reaching out to them. And I do think that it's a really good a good way to reach out to them is through your own page, because if you're really passionate about the content that you're posting, then when you reach out to these people and they look at your account, they're gonna see that you're truly passionate and you're creating cool content and you're really building those relationships with those audiences. So if you connect with them and build a community of like-minded people or creators, that you can help each other out to drive audiences, right? So I think there's best practices. There's no way to like quickly grow something. I mean, you're literally building a relationship. If you tell me, how can I make more friends? You know, like, in order to make more friends, you actually have to be out there. You have to listen to people. You have to relate to people. You have to ask them questions. You have to answer questions. You have to go hang out together. Like, it's the same thing, except you're doing it at a massive scale. So don't forget about it. You're still building relationships and building friendships. So that should be the top priority when you're trying to build an audience.
So I think there's a couple of things you need to do if you want to build an audience on social, and I will give you some practical hacks. One of the things I hate when I think is like, oh, we're going to tell you about these things, but not specific. So the number one thing, I'll make a deal with you, is to follow this, and then we'll go into the next part. Be interesting and do good shit. Like, do things that are interesting, do things that people want to see, and not like another. Why is your duck face interesting? Like, why does somebody want to see that? So like, ask yourself 3 times, like, why is somebody going to engage with it? Write something where it is your voice and it's interesting and unique, and it is not a description of the picture. The marriage of great content with copy will really, really drive you further. So and then once you start doing that stuff, and that is the basis for everything, that's like social media 101, then collaborate. That is exactly, what you're saying, go out and make friends. Once you have this thing that is interesting that you're doing, send out 40 cold emails a day to publications, and anybody that has a bigger social audience than you that is willing to feature you and tag you. If it's a brand and you're like, hey, I do really cool photos, or I have this awesome thing where I can like blow things on fire. Who knows? Like, call the brand and be like, I will post for free, but I would just love to be reposted on your channel. And just go out there and put yourself out there. Yeah, like I did a bit, like it's like a little bit desperate. Like, but yes, go knock on the door and go and do that. If you're a fashion blogger, go do it with a magazine. If you're a food person, come talk to me and we'll see what we can do to Tastemade. Like, it is. Just go and put yourself out there. Talk to other creators. Be like, hey man, like I really love what you're doing. Instead of being like, hey, are you gonna tag me on your social media? Be like, would you have some type of chat? Like, could we get on a Google Hangout? Like, I really like what you're doing, and you never know what kind of tips you're gonna get from there. And I'll tell you everything. That basic advice there is how I've gotten every single job that I've had. every single job that I've had, I cold emailed God knows how many people until somebody gave me a chance, and it's the same thing on social.
All right. Yeah. I'll make the same deal. I'll tell you. There are things that you can do. You can buy followers. You can use paid for followers, but does it do anything for you?
What about machines that like follow people automatically?
Like Instagram or like any of those
I
like
don't know, all
Instagram
those
sort of
things
things?
that you can buy, yeah.
I know. I've been doing social for like 20 years. No, I've been doing like 10 years. It's like I've seen them all. I've seen people. I've been to dozens of these, and people are always like, "How do I get more followers?" Sure, you can. I mean, like you can get followers from buying them from bots, outsourcing them in India or something. But numbers are nothing without like interesting content that has. Because I always tell people when they want to establish themselves in social media, the key is to become an authority. That's the only reason why people want to follow you, why they want to listen to you, because you know what you're talking about. If you don't know your shit, then you're kind of like, you're just a person, The reason why I follow people is because they give me information or tips or something that I'm really interested in, and they're really good at displaying it. So it's like, no matter whether you want to pay for like a bot, it doesn't do anything for you. Content is still king. So, to her point, you gotta make good content. And like, if you're not regularly doing content, like, look over the data, look over the timing of what it is, what kind of form, like long form, short form kind of content that was in whatever the post that you put out is performing well, then you excel those. I mean, it's really, social media is at the heart of it social, and like to be social with people, you have to be conversational. It's not a broadcast where you can buy a bunch of followers and expect them to react to something that you put out. So it's.
I mean, COSI, it's pretty much collaboration. We have, talent in our network that have 7 million followers on Facebook, and then some with 2,000. And the guy with 2,000 was like, "Hey, I'd love to work with you." Trickle continue to snowball, and that has like 50,000 followers. So it's really about finding the right people to work with, and all of that. Also hashtag everywhere.
Side note, I got clowned by some like teenage trollers the other day on Twitter for using too many hashtags. I don't know, what's the protocol there? 1 or 2 hashtags per tweet? That's what they were talking about.
I think I read a study once that 2 hashtags per tweet, and then more than that, the engagement drops. But I feel like that was Twitter. I think that was Twitter. So, but I mean, it's up to you to figure out what's best for your audience. I do believe that finding the right hashtags is something that you should think about. Don't hashtag food and think that you're going to show up in an onslaught of thousands and thousands of Instagrams per second. Try to find unique ones. I recently discovered a lot of LA-based hashtags for my husband, who is a chef. And, eats with 5 E's is apparently a popular hashtag. And, trying to like micro-target hashtags is just a way to kind of be a little bit more visible in the right audience.
I thought really quickly. So, if you are on Facebook and Instagram right now, definitely try and share video, and good video at least once a week. They're going to favor your post, and you may end up on a Twitter feed. And then I want to give you 2 examples of people to look at from like the content standpoint. So, there is an Instagram account called Symmetry Breakfast. I don't know if you guys follow them, but it's basically this guy in Happy London who took pictures of like the breakfast is perfectly symmetrical. He was the late adopter to Instagram, and he's over 500,000 followers right now. And he is an example of someone whose content was just really incredible and like went crazy. It's a meal that so it's something that everybody can relate to. It's done in a different and unpredictable way. And it like literally you aspire to have it. And then the second one is a brand that I used to work for. It's a smaller jewelry company called Monica Vinegar. And the way that we grew that social channel was through influencer collaboration. So this was back in the days before like, the monetized structure or whatever, and I was giving away a lot of jewelry, and people were doing and posting Instagram posts. But that's an example of collaborating with somebody that has a much bigger audience than you are. So we went from like 0 to 90,000 followers, no paid media in less than 6 months. So those are just 3 concrete steps of the deal.
Couple things that I was thinking about as well. I mean, obviously, we all agree that content is king, and you got to be creative, and you got to be different, and you got to create content your audience will like. But when you're starting out, don't forget that you're also a curator. So you don't necessarily have to create every single piece of content, because that's one, really expensive and time consuming, and a lot of times at the beginning when you're starting, you're not seeing a lot of traction with that, right? So definitely understand your brand and then find content that others create, just share that content on your page. Just gotta make sure you're on top of your audience, giving them good stuff. So instead of them going and searching for that content, you're finding it for them and putting it on your page and it's find it there, right? So that's one thing, definitely curate. And the other thing is, know your audience, like we've said. So analytics, data, you have to be on top of that. Every audience is different. Some of them engage at midnight. We have some accounts that we have to post at 2 in the morning, and that's when we get the most hits and most reach. There's some that are really active at 2 in the afternoon, right? So every audience, every brand is different. So you have to make sure that you're constantly going into the insights on the Facebook page, you're going to analytics. I mean, just really understand who you're publishing content for and create the content and create your own as well. Curation and analytics, huge.
Awesome. So, what do you guys look for in influencers? Obviously, something that can connect to whatever the message is, but more in terms of how many followers somebody has, right? There's a lot of talk about you can have 9,000 followers and be a great influencer, or you can have 5 million followers and maybe your campaign won't do so well with that. So, what are you guys really looking for when you're starting to approach influencers and kind of create that strategy?
So I really hate it when it starts with a conversation about followers. So it's for a lot of different things. I'm sorry, but I hate that. You can buy followers today. Like there is just so many. I mean, but there are brands that they still come to me and they're like, we want this number of followers. The audience isn't big enough, and I get mad because I'm like, what I really look at is engagement rate and the comments. So if I have a smaller talent where I constantly see in the comments, where did you get that? I want to buy that. How do you use it? What do you do with it? I know that there's an intent to purchase from their audience, and if their engagement rate, generally the rule of thumb is like above 2%, which okay, that's a rule of thumb. But if you're at 5 or 7% and you're having a higher engagement rate, that's definitely a great thing, but it doesn't necessarily need intent to purchase. Like reach sometimes is more compatible to that and views. So there's all different reasons, but at Tastemade, for example, we're turning over 1.8 billion monthly views. We have millions of followers. So the people that we put on our platform that represent the Tastemade voice, I literally handpick these people. And I'm like, this person aligns with my brand. This person is helping bring to life the Tastemade story. For me there, because I do have the platform behind us, the follower number doesn't matter as much. If I'm doing that for a brand and they're like, oh, then, the first thing that you should ask the brand is what is the importance, right? Is it views? Is it quality of content? Is it personality? Who are you trying to reach? Do you want a mom? Do you want a millennial? Do you want an older parent? All of these questions have to come up because you are using people to market for you. So yes, there will be data and insights and all those things that back them up. But the number one thing is do they tell a good story? Is there high engagement? And then if somebody turns around and is well, what about their followers? And they keep pressing you on that. Well, clearly they don't understand what they're talking about. So just give them somebody with high followers and do what they want. But that person, I'm telling you right there, that marketing executive in the room has no clue about how to reach the business objectives that are being set.
Right, I couldn't agree more with that. I mean, I think there's a huge learning curve when it comes to brands because they really focus. Well, one, they don't really know how to track or how to make sure that it's a successful campaign, right? So you really have to get in front of them and teach them what matters and why. If we listen, because a lot of times the brands will come and say, "This is what we want. This is creative we want." It's wait a minute, that doesn't align with the actual influencer we're talking to, right? So they need to understand that if you create a good campaign and it's organic to the voice of the influencer, it's gonna have greater conversion than if you just tell them to post whatever you think your campaign is about, right? So there's definitely a big learning curve, and it's a big difference when you're dealing with a brand as when you're internally selecting the influencers you want to utilize to either feature them on your site or whatever like that. When it comes to strategy of, let's see, we're working with campaign, there's different things that we do, but we look at all kinds of influencers because they serve different purposes. Like if they're a lower size, they can help, or lower, not as big a following, they can help us amplify the message, right? And then we use the ones that have greater audiences and they're engaged audiences, obviously. I mean, we wouldn't talk to anybody that's just because they have 3 million followers. If they're not engaged, there's no comments, there's no likes, there's no back and forth, then they're not worth anything to us. But so that's really important. And then once you create a campaign, then every brand, depending on what the objective is and what they're looking to achieve, then we can create different campaigns. We utilize all kinds of influencers. I mean, yeah, it wouldn't matter what size they are. If they have good engagement, then we have something for them.
That's an interesting question with influencers. I mean, I put influencers on dozens of movie-related campaigns. A lot of them didn't flourish in anything. I think understanding your audience and understanding how that influencer aligns with the audience's interests of your demographic is more important than how many followers that person has. Because if they're creating like really great content and they're really like in that niche of whoever you're marketing to, then that is way more valuable than if they post a tweet to 10 million followers and that's it. You've got to really understand how to use the influencers and how they connect with their audiences. And obviously the engagement rate has to be like great between their audience and even we've done stuff with like celebrity level or social level and stuff. And if it's like if they're just posting about something that's kind of slightly off brand for them, it gets nothing. They don't there's no engagement because it makes no sense. It's like that's obviously an ad. I mean, I think a lot of people I always tell people education to someone who's telling you oh, we need influencers on this because it's a buzzword, is social media is 75% education for teaching people why and why you don't need someone with 10 million followers if it's off brand. So it's really understanding influencers, how they interact with you, and then more than the numbers, it's how you integrate within their content. Be really collaborative with them, create a really good piece of content to get social virality as opposed to they have lots of followers, they do stuff, just give them a t-shirt and tell them to do something. And it's you want to be integrated, as integrated as possible.
We just walked down the hallways of 1600 Vine and followed the people with camera equipment. But no, seriously, 90% of the people we work with actually live in that building, and it's insane. Whenever I'm walking in there, there's always a film shoot, some sort of YouTube shoot or something going on everywhere. It's fascinating, but to go to that, really, we find influencers and people we sign into our network for us. So people that they've collaborated with and worked with, that they really enjoy working with, they refer them to us. And I think that's another reason why influencers really do need to go out there and reach out to the community and be really involved, because you never know how that'll end up. You could end up being someone just along for the ride. It's really about finding the people that you like to work with.
Another thing that I was just thinking about is that, we sort of approach this question from a brand perspective. But as an influencer, you're an influencer yourself. If someone reaches out to you and wants you to be part of a campaign, you got to make sure that you're really strict on which campaigns you jump with, you work with. You don't just say yes to everything that's going to give you a little money. Because what happens is that you actually hurt your engagement. Every time you do a campaign that doesn't align with your brand, your audience knows that and sees that and knows that you're selling them something and you're not really passionate about it. So you have to really, really, really careful of which campaigns you actually be a part of. So be really careful of that. Those is one thing.
From the branded side of it, whether it's a question of budget, whether you're dealing with having to pay somebody or exchange product, or even if it's just a question from like a marketing standpoint, I think it's really important to pinpoint when you're using influencers along the consumer journey. So if you divide it up into discovery, consideration, purchase, and then the advocacy side of it, like a lot of the time what Pastemate's doing is we're coming in the discovery phase. So if mobile is the first screen and not a lot of people are aware about your product, getting a post on a lot of different feeds, or if you don't, like you can work with like many small creators, right? And you have more of a grassroots campaign, then you're more in the discovery phase. But if it's like, oh, I don't have enough budget to do that, maybe I need to move over into like the actual time when they're purchasing, right? So I've done all the marketing part of it. So where do I get them a click to buy? Like, how am I going to convert that? And that's when I need to show my boss, and that's the only place that I can show money. But all of that comes back to influencing the person to then post about it once they've bought it or they've had the experience. So the more strategic you can get about it, like the more budget you can have to play there. And as an influencer, if you think that way, you're like, hey, this is exactly where I'm going to influence your consumer. I, as on the marketing side of it, would be more than happy to hear that. And I would, I'm not saying like I would immediately work with you, but I would definitely be like, person knows their shit. I'm going to, try and give them a shot.
Awesome. So are there any networks where you can find influencers or collaborate with other influencers besides Rise 9 over there? So how do you guys find these? How do you guys find the influencers? Is there like a LinkedIn for influencers? No.
I mean,
Walking on an alleyway.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true.
That's what comes with building. Yeah, again, for us, it's definitely 90% referrals, a little bit of, internal, I guess, tools that we've built out on our own, and a little bit of just, a lot of manual labor, using our tools out there, whether it's searching on Twitter, whether it's searching on something like Tubular Labs, or a lot of video influencers. Those are probably.
What about, is there any way to get analytics on somebody's audience so you can tell how engaged their audience is?
Tubular Labs has some analytics for video influencers out there. And then if I can just go check
Where to find influencers?
Yeah, is there any?
I mean, like I said, like everything's contingent on the demographic because you always have to pick the audience. I try to be whoever the audience is and like read what they're like, posting and get inside that headspace and kind of figure out who their influencers are, as opposed to like a general broad influencer who like I really sound about. Because it's like also with influencers, really pricey. Like if you get to the higher levels, it's like it's really expensive to get onto that level. It's better to be to understand it on this is the demographic and this is what they like.
Yeah, there's definitely some tools out there. I think, like IBM has this like super Watson computer where they map somebody by the DNA. I don't know. Like it's like crazy AI stuff out there, and there's a lot of people out there that are, they're trying to become marketplaces. Like there's Twitter has something, a division called Niche, where they find people and then they match them to the brand or whatever. I mean, I do it and we do it at Pastemates the old-fashioned way. I mean, my team, like I call us treasure hunters. So like that is what we do. Like we go out, we do keyword searches, like going down the rabbit hole of Instagram. Like I have gone so deep, like on some accounts that I'm like, I don't even know how I landed on this page. But and that's usually what we'll do. Like I do work with my analytics team to see like, okay, where can we get more data on that? Because like once you found them, you do have to kind of like show besides just what you can see whether the right people from the brand. A lot of that requires the town to link your account to something so that you can, because a lot of it is like closed, right? So you can't like really pull that information. I would say, I don't think it's the best investment to use these influencer tools. I think the money is better spent elsewhere, and you just need to, put the manual labor in to do the key searches on Twitter. And then, Instagram is great because I usually start my search on Instagram. So I'll go to the recommended followers of people, and then I go down the rabbit hole there, and then I put their name into Google and see if they have other search accounts. And it sounds like, obviously like it's what I do, so I have to do it. But again, it's just some of these companies, like they're going to turn around to you and be like, yeah, for $5,000 a month, like we're going to give you all. They're not going to give you money. Don't spend money.
I agree. We do it the old-fashioned way. We also search and go deep in there and see what's trending, and we kind of keep following that, and we end up finding some influencers. But we also work with a lot of brokers. Brokers are represent influencers, and we already have connections there. So they're the ones that are sort of doing that work of finding them and getting them. And then you're connected to one of these brokers, and they'll connect you to more influencers who needed that. But it depends on what the purpose is, what are you trying to do with them. But yeah, I mean, we mainly search around. We work with some brokers, and there's actual companies out there that manage influencers. You can reach out to. I mean, it just depends what you're doing. If it's a campaign that you're trying to fulfill, then that might be a route. If you're just looking for influencers to cross promote your own account, and you really have to go in there and get to know your community and get to know the other creators in the space you're in and reach out to them.
If you were just starting out, and you had a little bit of a budget, would you recommend connecting with influencers and trying to pay influencers, or going with something like Facebook ads or Twitter ads or Instagram? What do you think would be a better strategy?
I saw this question when you sent it over, and I actually don't think they need to live separately. So I think that influencers are influencers for a reason. They have mass audiences because they know how to create content. When you are putting out a piece of content as an ad, that is going to be the best content that you have as an ad and a sponsor. So sometimes partnering with an influencer or creator, and they don't necessarily need to be an influencer. They can just be somebody that has really good photography, or they make really cool video, and they can function as your production company. And oftentimes that one person team who knows how to create content for social is going to be a lot more effective than some like glossy photography shop or video shop, and you can just merge the two of them together. So, and I don't know, it depends, how much budget you have, and then if you're going that route, potentially, spending less on the other side. But what most people say, and the model in most companies is 80% of your budget goes to distributing it, and 20% of your budget should go to creating it. 70, 30, 60, 40, anything lower than that, like no point in creating great content if no reason.
Richard, I'm gonna like 2,000 euros, right? Here. Whether it really depends. Like, what's your budget? Like, if it's like $100, you're not getting anywhere.
Well, you mentioned that influencers can be expensive. So maybe as a startup who has a hefty budget, or
I mean, if you're really lucky, someone who's an influencer, and it's like, yo, man, like, look at that. And then, like, can I whitelist on your account so I can put media money behind it, like when I see something that's good. Which you can do by the way, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. But I really think like it really depends on your budget. If you have like even like 10,000, I don't know if that's like enough for like a really good defensive campaign who wants like a bigger splash. It depends on how far you want and like what content you want to get from them to happen. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much more to add to that. It really depends on how much budget you have. Like you said, if you have $100, you probably should just spend it on ads and not a quarter of an influencer. It's like, I don't know, that would not get an influencer at all. So, I mean, if you can afford influencer marketing, you have to make sure that you're doing it properly still. And it would definitely be best done with people combined.
Well, if you're starting out, and the question is, what will you use? Whether it's influencer marketing, or getting someone to share your content, or actually doing Facebook ads and boosting your post. I think both of them are really important. But just remember that the objective of this is to get in front of audiences that like the content that you're sharing, right? So you want to get people, eyeballs that will resonate with your content, so that hopefully you would be retaining a certain percentage of those people and make them part of your group, right, of the network. So that is the goal. I don't think that it matters what kind of budget you have. I think that, I mean, that's if you're doing a bigger campaign, but if you're starting out, I think that if you just know influencers that are in your space that are willing to share, and they might be able to do it for $50 for a share, and you gotta know that their audience is going to connect with your content. Otherwise, there's no value. The retention that you're gonna get from that is not gonna be anything, right? But if their audience is engaged and they have similar content as you, and by them sharing with you, then most likely you're going to be able to retain a certain percentage of that audience that this other influencer has, and that's ultimately what you want. So when you have $100 and you have a really good piece of content, and reaching out to a couple of these influencers that are online, they might be able to do it for $50 for sure. Obviously, you can't go to a person that has 10 million followers or something, so you got $50 and share it. Obviously, you got to be playing in the playground that you're in. I mean, so let's say you have 10,000 followers, you reach out to someone that has 50,000 followers and say, hey, can we do something here? And then I will also share some of your content and we'll cross promote. So that's one thing. And on the other hand, I know through Facebook ads, even with $20, $50, you can actually boost that content. If the content is good, then you're slowly going to be collecting those fans. So the idea is retention. So even if you're retaining a small percentage of those people, then next time you do it, you have a bigger audience and a bigger audience and a bigger audience, and then you'll be able to attract bigger influencers, and then eventually the value of your own share, once you have enough of an audience, will be enough to be able to trade shares with somebody else or things like that. So you have to start slow. Obviously, if you're starting, that's what I would recommend. Whatever money you got is like connect with your community, try to share, cross promote each other, or use your $100 towards a couple of shares, or use $50 towards Facebook ads and really boost your post to the right demographic and the right audience, so that again, you have to be tracking retention. I mean, that has to be your KPI, right? So your goal is to grow your audience.
It's not about like, if you have like $100, I don't know why this is $100, but if you have $100, I think like, depending on what your product is, like say you have like donuts, and you want to sell, like you want to get to these influencers, send the donuts there, and like in hopes that they'll post about like, oh man, like this donut shop sent me a bunch of donuts, I'm gonna post this on social media. That way it's like, and you turn those people into like super fans. Like you might not get like 100 out of 100, but if you send out 100 donuts, you're getting 10 people who become super fans of your brand. And they'll keep posting about it, and then they become part of your army of people who are followers who are fans of your stuff. So it's when you're playing on limited budgets, I think reaching out to an audience and turning those people into super fans as opposed to reaching out to like a 10 million follower influencer would probably be better to use your money towards.
Definitely be creative. But one thing that I was just thinking about, that once you're doing that, you have to make sure that you're actually engaging with the new audience that's coming in. So the moment that somebody shares you, anybody that leaves you a comment, anybody that comes and asks a question, you have to be on top of that. You have to literally answer, ask another question, engage them in conversation, propose new ideas within feed, and get engaged in that, right? So you have to make sure that you're, again, building relationships.
Awesome. So right now I want to open it up to questions from the audience. So anybody have any questions? Okay, go ahead. Speak loudly.
How much are we calling of making sure that influencers are saying ad? It's paid. Are we doing that?
Or influencers marketing
Hashtag
posts with
SP.
ad.
Hashtag ad.
Yeah, so good.
I'm very strict with our influencers. Whenever we do a campaign, we have to say something that's very clear. Like I'm very concerned about the FTC guidelines, and I know that things like hashtag SP have been used, short for sponsored, and that doesn't cut it anymore. We have to be much more clear about it. And I know that it does hurt engagement when it's made so obvious that it's a sponsored post or an advertisement. I think we just need to work more creatively with the brand to create content that's not like, I'm this person and I like Rice Krispie treats and like, you know, it's really coming up with funny, good content that will still engage your audiences. It's working some sort of personal brand.
Yeah, I think like it really does hurt engagement, like because and on Twitter it's like can't because you have to put that in there. Yeah, no pictures and stuff. Pictures and video. Yeah, to that point, yes, I think that you got to be creative with the content. I think that's more, even though it's a sponsored post, content carries content. So it's like I think sort of like I agree. The creative content.
So I can't speak for the influencers, but I'll speak on behalf of Kingsman. We do sponsor content. You know, there are rules, like you can't have a brand product in the first 3 seconds of the Facebook video, or like it is illegal not to disclose that it is a sponsored post. It's not even a question of whether do you do it, do you not do it. It's illegal, and you know, Laura Mercier got in a lot of trouble with like the Laura Mercier partner post, and it's just going to become like we just need to be more transparent. But you know, we have posts that we put on our Instagram, our Facebook, or even our YouTube, and the ones that don't do well are the ones where the brand is like, but why isn't mayonnaise the hero of everything in this post? Like everything should be mayonnaise, and like that's not going to do well, right? Like the mayonnaise needs to be layered into the sandwich in the way that people would consume mayonnaise, not with like tubs that they would lather all over their face. And then, you know, it's like the brand becomes their own worst enemy. So I think that the more native the content is, the more the branded product is in a way that the consumer really understands it to their experience, they're cool with it. And some of our branded content, so our show Heritage, it won a Webby, some of our other sponsored, you know, they've been nominated for James Beard Award. So, you know, and let's go back to the days, right, where like, you know, the powers that be, whether it was like the church, the Catholic Church, or a hotel, they were giving away products, or they were commissioning these people to create these like amazing works of art that we now stand and look at in museums. But that is branded content for a time story, and we buy travel posters that were once advertisements. So if it is done right, there's no reason that, you know, maybe your grandkids are like, oh, my Calvin's campaign with Justin Bieber, like, it is a vintage work of art. So, you know, like, if you know it in the right way, you laugh now. But you know, my dad's old, and he, like, looks at some of the advertisements that I have for Monte Carlo, and he's like, propaganda. Like, it's not a question of nostalgia.
I don't think there's much to add there. I mean, definitely content is content. You have to position it right. You definitely should let the audiences know because pay on time.
Awesome. Any more questions?
Can you talk about how you're using 360 video?
I don't know. Sorry. The question was about 360 video on Facebook, was it?
Yeah, mostly Facebook.
Are any of you guys using that at all? Or? Not yet? No?
It's expensive to create the environment for it. Like if you want to do it, like all the time. I know that we haven't done anything that's normally like how normal people would use Facebook 360.
So we have a post on our Facebook page today that is being launched of our VR project with John. So you can see some of it being utilized there, but in our day-to-day content, we're not using it as much, and brands aren't coming in and asking for it as much. I don't think it's really broken the mold yet. It's like, oh, this is kind of like I'm used to doing this. So I hope to be using it more though, but it's just
Awesome. I saw a question back there. So, go ahead. Please speak loudly.
What do you guys see in the future of media monetization? It's
something like
Yes, Facebook is talking about monetizing their videos, mostly with, I think, middle ads. So you post a video and then somewhere in the middle, an ad would pop up, or it might be pre-rolled, I'm not sure yet. They haven't really disclosed when that'll be, though they keep saying before the end of the year. I know that they talked about, I think Facebook Live has been monetized a little bit.
You get already beta.
Yeah, they're on beta now. Twitter is also having monetization for their videos. I know there's a sign up form to just join your Twitter monetization, and I've seen tons of like pre-roll ads for various videos posted on Twitter now. And speaking of Vine, yeah, they're monetizing as well. I think that's a little too late.
that. Go ahead.
So you talk about the Chewbacca thing. I think something that goes viral is you really can't make something go viral. It kind of happens. But what I thought was interesting about what YouTube has done is made a platform so you can monetize your personas and your brands and you can actually make some money. But when she put that onto Facebook, she just put it up there as it's going to happen. It just took off. It's the most viewed video that's ever been seen. But she didn't get the money. She would have had that same kind of virality in YouTube. She could have made $1 million. I mean, she could have really made a lot of money. So that dovetails into the question that he was asking about Facebook's doing with their Facebook Live, and if they're going after a lot of networks, kind of turning into, are they going to become an MSO? Are they going to become a multiple service operator and get content, put it on there, and that becomes a spot where you can arbitrage your ads against your videos? And that's what I'm kind of curious with Comedy.com, with all the views that you have, is that get access to an audience like Facebook that has so many ads that you could actually go in at low cost and be able to leverage that. Now you're monetizing not only the video, but the channel itself. And are they doing that? And that's kind of where I'm going, what's it look like from a content perspective, from a video producer, network, a small studio, a film company? Are you in those conversations, what that dialogue looks like? So, or is it something not to discuss?
I can't really discuss what conversations we're currently in.
Yeah.
I just,
But I know it looks like.
I will say that, what I said before, they do plan on putting up monetization for all Facebook videos before the end of the year. But they are working with some networks on, trying to push it out.
So let me ask you this, does it look exciting what they're doing? Does it look promising, or do you see some we're not talking about the money side, because that's easy to look at and see how it works, but from an opportunity perspective, does it look promising?
I would say, I mean, to me, it looks very similar to what, YouTube.
Yes.
So, that's really all I can say without being like, oh, the outcome of this. So,
Right.
I mean,
Just
there's
curious
a lot
how
of
many-
things that aren't really set in stone yet.
Yeah.
And so, I'm not really sure what it looks like.
I'm curious how they're going to layer in the Instagram side. It's a whole different demographic. So how do you layer that into the Facebook side if the people that are using Facebook aren't using Instagram, or especially vice versa? People using
Yeah, they do
Instagram.
have those really integrated right now. Facebook and Instagram advertising models are both currently integrated.
Yes.
And I don't think they have any plans to separate them.
Cool. Anyone else? If we have time for one more. Go ahead.
First of all, thank you for your insight. So you mentioned superfans, and I love the idea of superfans because, when I think about it, regular followers are just an army of droids, and superfans are like apostles. There's only 12 of them, but it's different. So my question is, what is the quantitative method of finding them? So how do you approach? Because it's really hard to kind of withdraw superfans from the mass of followers, but they can be no less effective than the influencers. So how can this be approached?
Yeah, I'm like all of us do, we dive deep into the audiences and look for people who are vocally expressing positive sentiment about things, and it's like, and then we do a conversation with them. So you they comment on something, you reply to them and see like their excitement.
Yeah, but what kind of data do you analyze? Like, how do you, let's say there's like John, and he really has like 300 followers, which is not great. But he is a super fan of, like Fox News or something, or whatever. And he retweets and reposts something about this brand every single day, sometimes 4 or 5 times. How do you find out that there's this person doing that somewhere in South Carolina? I don't know, like, how do you find it?
Social listening tools.
I'm trying to understand. I mean, are you talking from a perspective of your own accounts that you manage? Or are you talking like in a campaign, like, oh, I'm working with KISS, so I need to find super followers for KISS? At that point, I feel like you would have to rely on KISS to tell you who their super fans are and to like share some of that information with you. Because really a super fan, to me, is someone who the moment you post something, likes it, shares it, gives you a comment, engages with you. Those are your super fans. That's why the first few minutes after you post anything are really important, because those are the people that really care about you and your brand. And the moment they see you post something, they come and engage with you. So you have to engage back with them. Those are your super fans. And it's important to keep it. At this point, though, outside of a campaign, it doesn't matter how many followers they have. They could have no followers, but there's someone that cares about your brand, and you want to make sure that you cater to them, right? Because they're really your fans are there every time you post something. So.
So I had a moment as a super fan when everyone asked me if they could repost my picture, and it felt like I won the Oscar. Like I wanted to thank everybody in my life. So I think it depends on the platform that you're on. Obviously, if it's on Instagram, I think you can scroll through your brand hashtag or the brand hashtag or photos where people have been tagged, like see what the quality of their photo is. Like a user-generated picture is going to convert on average like anywhere between 10 to 17% more than a standard product photo. So if it's photo-driven, you can look through that. I think social listening tools, like that is something I would invest in. I'd say forget the influencer mapping and look at the social listening tools, because you can kind of manipulate that data and input the right keywords so that you're landing on these people. And then you need to do a little bit of searching. So it's like, how many conversations are they engaged in with the brand? So for me, they're not a super fan if they're just talking at the brand and they're posting. For me, they become a super fan when they start answering community questions that a brand's community manager should start answering. Because they're doing the work on your behalf. Like they're doing advocacy for you. Like that is the gold standard that you want. So I would look at the other dialogues that they are sparking and inspiring as a qualifying factor to become a super.
Awesome. Cool.
Just real quick, speaking of social monitoring tools, what do you guys all use? Is there a best of breed that you guys all agree on? Do you think that those are good ones to use? Do you have any suggestions? You want to give the audience what these good tools to look at for that on that?
Sure. I use both free and paid. I think Hootsuite is like the obvious one that you can go to like, do your standard thing there. I've used things like Sprout Social as well, and then fancy ones like Falcon Social that goes through the app. Again, this is like the more stuff it gives you and the more complicated it becomes. It depends on your budget, right? Like if you have budget to subscribe to Tubular and get those data and insights, like you should totally do that.
Yeah.
But I would just kind of look at what your budget is, make sure you're getting the basic things with like keyword searches, alerts when people are talking about your brand, and whatnot. And then like once those needs are met and you have things that are left over, be like, okay, well yeah, I could do somebody that's gonna like track or help me build a campaign.
Yeah, I mean, like, it really depends on what you're looking for. If you're really looking for just like keywords, then you use all the free stuff. So it's always the standard. What I use personally was I employed an agency called Listen First, which they pulled all the data for me, and then they presented it in my paper. So it really depends on the budget. Obviously, that budget costs like a team as opposed to like a self-serve.
I've used Reading 6, and I would say that for a moderate budget, Sprout Social, I just don't have a really good customer service experience with this, but I might actually be a super fan, I'm not sure yet.
Have you guys heard of socialreport.com? Anybody heard of that one? It's nobody's heard of it. It's a really great service. It's socialreport.com. No, you can post, you can do everything this week. It monitors, it reports back, you can follow hashtags. It's badass. You know, right? Drop the mic. It's
Yeah, good. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming out tonight. Anyone who has VIP tickets, please come up to the front and talk to me. But right now, I would encourage you guys all to look at the people next to you, say hello, shake some hands, and do some networking.
Yeah.